practice here, what are you guys, or what are you trying to preach from a defensive standpoint? What are some of the mantras that you're hammering home to these guys?
Yeah, the number one thing we started with going into training camp is preparing to win and having the mindset to do that. And defensively for us, we talk a lot right now about what it sounds like on tape. And, obviously there's no volume when we watch the tape, but the communication, the violence, the swarm, the effort that we play with each other, that's the main emphasis. We're in a pretty good place with our scheme, but right now we're coaching the fundamentals and how we play the game. And I think our guys are connecting with that.
Coach Harasimiak talked a lot about being violent and making sure that's a focal point of the defense. How do you instill that in practice when you're not fully live, you're only thud, you're not finishing through tackles?
Yeah, I think it's in everything you do, right? So what we talk our guys about is it's not just with how you play. It's how you communicate. It's your mindset when you come in the door. It's how you prepare for meetings. Violence can be, in every detail in the part of football and every part of your life. It's more of a mindset. And if the guys buy in and they see it and you're showing it on tape and showing examples of when you can use it, that's when you start seeing it on the field. And our guys have had a good approach with that so far.
Is there a handful of guys that you would say are kind of catalysts on the defense as far as being violent?
Right now the group that sticks out in my mind is that linebacker group with the experience and the level of violence that they're playing with. But they wouldn't be able to play with that level of violence without the four guys in front of them. So really happy with our D-line and their violence and their approach and mindset into this camp. And I think, that interior seven right now for us is the focal point, and it starts with them.
Talk about, Coach, how those two units complement each other. You have your four down linemen, two linebackers, at least in the depth chart. How do you try to mesh that all together so they work as one team?
Yeah, it's all one unit, right? And we talk a lot about, one offensive player can make 10 guys look good, and one defensive player can make 10 guys look bad. If he's in the wrong spot, he doesn't get the right call. So it's important for us. It starts up front, and holding their gaps and gap ownership and straining with violence through the play, but it's up to the linebackers in the run scheme to pull off those combos, right? And then it's up to the safeties to fit off the linebacker. So that all goes into play. And then when you talk into the pass game, well, the coverage relies on the rush, and the rush relies on the coverage. So it is an all 11 unit type mentality.
How do you, improve that rush from last year? And then two, do you think, is there a chance we'll see both DePapes on the line at the same time?
I think right now with the level of, all the way through that depth, I think you can see a heavy rotation of guys. So that's certainly a possibility. We've had a lot of guys and our pass rushes look better. Credit to Coach Wart and Coach Keyte on it and what they're doing. But I think the mindset of the D-line is an attack mentality right now. And we tried to instill that with the guys that have been here, like Timmy Passmore, guys that are back into the program, Josh Nobles, they're the leaders, the catalysts, but the guys who came in that we brought in really buy into what our message is. So really excited about that front, and I think you're going to see a lot of faces there.
Coach, you do have some players that played last year that were in the program. How do you try to get them to mesh with the people that you brought in for this season?
Our number one thing right now is connection. And we've, in the offseason, that's kind of where we've focused our energy, obviously the football side of things, but getting this group together, putting our phones away, eating lunch together, and trying to integrate the groups so that they know who they're playing with. And the best defenses I've been a part of, they play for each other, right? It matters who's playing next to them, and they want to play for them. You don't want to let anybody down. And I think we're in a spot right now where the guys are buying into that, and we're always pointing out, opportunities to celebrate with your teammates, to show love to teammates, and those things go a long way on and off the field.
You had mentioned the depth up front. How do you try to continue to develop that across your defense in case there's injuries or other things that come up over the course of the season?
Yeah, it's always, I think, with the front seven is the depth, right? And I think you're preparing the guys, who are stacking in those twos, those three spots, because you always get to those guys, and there's always going to be a rotation. So giving them the mindset that you are going to have an opportunity, so you have to prepare to win and be in that position. So when you get called on, you're ready. And we coach everybody in that unit with the same mentality, from the guys who go out there first to the guys who just got here in the program, might be young freshmen, but those guys got to be ready. And I think our coaching staff, especially our D-line coaches, are preparing them for that.